Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching our special telecast, Budget of Hope. I'm Frank Rausen Pereira. With me is my colleague Preeti Singh. We welcome all our viewers to our program this evening. After the budget in 2020, we saw that the entire country went into a lockdown in March. Several sectors were badly hit. The lockdown ensured that most Indians were indoors except the frontline workers. There was a lot of damage caused as a result of what we saw because of the pandemic as far as the entire country was concerned. But it was not all bad. There was something that we learnt. There was a new normal that we all came out with. And technology showed us the way. When physical distancing was the norm, technology, new ideas ensured that from education to entertainment and from information to everything else was brought to our doorstep. On the program today, we are going to talk about what to expect from the budget 2021 as far as new age technology is concerned and how much of a fillip is the finance minister going to give new age technology.
बिल्कुल फ्रैंक, जैसा आपने बताया कि कोरोना की चुनौतियों के बीच हमने टेक्नोलॉजी की जो ताकत है उसे ज़रूर पहचाना है और इसीलिए आज हम उम्मीदों का बजट में बात करेंगे न्यू एज टेक्नोलॉजी की। नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार की सफलताओं में हम देखें तो टेक्नोलॉजी ने एक तरह से बहुत अहम भूमिका निभाई है, चाहे वो हम किसानों की सब्सिडी की बात करें या फिर कोविड के दौरान बीमारी का मैनेजमेंट। सरकार ने टेक्नोलॉजी के जरिए स्थिति को काफ़ी संभाला और आम जनता से सीधा संपर्क बनाए रखा। आज जब अर्थव्यवस्था में तेजी लाने की बात की जा रही है तो लाजमी है कि टेक्नोलॉजी का ऐसा इस्तेमाल किया जाए जिससे कम से कम समय में ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों तक फायदा पहुंचे।
दो 2014 में जब नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार सत्ता में आई तो उसने जैम का मॉडल अपनाया। ये था किसानों के लिए जनधन खाते खोलना, उन्हें आधार से लिंक करना। इस खाते को किसान मोबाइल से भी ऑपरेट कर सकते थे। तकनीक पर आधारित प्रधानमंत्री जनधन योजना किसानों के जीवन में क्रांतिकारी परिवर्तन लेकर आई। सरकारी मदद जो पहले किसानों तक पहुंचते पहुंचते आधी हो जाया करती थी, अब पूरी की पूरी उनके खाते में पहुंचती है। इस योजना के तहत आज 47 करोड़ 65 लाख खाते खोले जा चुके हैं। इन खातों में 1,37,000 करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा की राशि है। तकनीक को लेकर सरकार की प्राथमिकता का अंदाजा इसी बात से ही लगाया जा सकता है कि जहां 2018-19 में सरकार ने आईटी और टेलीकॉम पर 14,868 करोड़ रुपए खर्च किए थे, वहीं 2020-21 के बजट में इस क्षेत्र के लिए 59,000 करोड़ रुपए से भी ज्यादा आवंटित किए गए। इसके अलावा सरकार ने वैज्ञानिक विभाग पर भी खर्च 2018-19 के 24,755 करोड़ रुपए से बढ़ाकर पिछले बजट में 30,000 करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा कर दिया था। आइए एक नजर डालते हैं सरकार की टेक्नोलॉजी को बढ़ावा देने वाली विभिन्न स्कीमों पर। सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स को राहत देने के लिए सरकार ने सब्सिडी का खर्च 2018-19 के 4,788 करोड़ रुपए से बढ़ाकर 2020-21 में 8,000 करोड़ रुपए कर दिया था। इलेक्ट्रॉनिक और आईटी की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बढ़ावा देने के लिए सरकार ने अपना बजट 2018-19 के 727 करोड़ रुपए से बढ़ाकर पिछले साल 980 करोड़ रुपए किया था। आईटी और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक के अनुसंधान और विकास पर सरकार ने 2 सालों में राशि को 179 करोड़ रुपए से बढ़ाकर 763 करोड़ रुपए कर दिया। इनोवेशन, टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलपमेंट और डिप्लॉयमेंट पर भी सरकार ने 2018-19 में 773 करोड़ रुपए खर्च किए थे। उसके अगले साल यानी 2019-20 में सरकार ने 812 करोड़ रुपए खर्च किए, जबकि 2020-21 में इस मकसद के लिए 1,051 करोड़ रुपए की राशि रखी गई। इसी तरह स्पेस टेक्नोलॉजी पर भी खर्च को 2018-19 के 6,383 करोड़ रुपए से बढ़ाकर 2020-21 में 9,762 करोड़ रुपए कर दिया गया। भारत की टेक्नोलॉजी क्षेत्र में बढ़ती महारत ही है कि आज देश डिजिटल स्किल का हब माना जाता है। भारत की इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी इंडस्ट्री कर्मचारियों की ट्रेनिंग पर हर साल $1.6 बिलियन खर्च करती है। हालांकि कोविड-19 ने पूरा माहौल ही बदल दिया है। स्कूली शिक्षा ऑनलाइन हुई है तो वर्क फ्रॉम होम का चलन भी बढ़ा है। ऐसे में आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस और मशीन लर्निंग की अहमियत पहले से कहीं ज्यादा हो गई है। आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस से डॉक्टरों, सार्वजनिक स्वास्थ्य के प्रबंधन और स्थानीय प्रबंधन में काफी मदद मिली है। जानकारों के मुताबिक कोविड-19 से पैदा हुई परिस्थितियों के कारण AI और ML को काफी तेजी मिली है। इस क्षेत्र में आज करीब 5 लाख लोग काम कर रहे हैं। उम्मीद है कि आने वाले दिनों में भारत आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस और मशीन लर्निंग का भी केंद्र बन जाएगा। नेस्कॉम के मुताबिक साल 2025 तक AI देश की GDP में 450 से $500 बिलियन का योगदान कर सकती है। सरकार ने भी AI के प्रचार और प्रसार के लिए कई कदम उठाए हैं। एक नेशनल AI पोर्टल की स्थापना की गई है जो इससे जुड़े लोगों को एक मंच प्रदान करता है। इस क्षेत्र में ऊंची शिक्षा और शोध के लिए विशेषवरैया PhD स्कीम लागू की गई है जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक सिस्टम डिजाइन, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, IT इनेबल सर्विसेज के क्षेत्र में शोध कर रहे छात्रों के लिए है। सरकार का फर्दर स्किल प्राइम कार्यक्रम कर्मचारियों की योग्यता में इजाफा करने के लिए है। सरकार का टेक्नोलॉजी इंक्यूबेशन एंड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एंटरप्रेन्योर्स यानी टाइप 2.0 खासकर नए विचारों को बढ़ावा देने और उन्हें जरूरी सहायता देने के लिए है। इसके अलावा भी सरकार ने कई सेंटर ऑफ एक्सीलेंस बनाए हैं जिनके जरिए AI को बढ़ावा दिया जा रहा है। हर एक समस्या अपने साथ कुछ सबक भी लाती है। कोविड-19 ने भी हमें टेक्नोलॉजी का सबक दिया है। सरकार से उम्मीद है कि वो बजट में टेक्नोलॉजी पर और ज्यादा ध्यान देगी। ब्यूरो रिपोर्ट, राज्यसभा टीवी।
And this edition of Budget of Hope 2021-2022, we'll talk about new age technologies, and to do that we have an excellent panel on the program today. Let me introduce the panel to you. Sangeeta Gupta, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer, NASSCOM, with us. Also with us, R. Jagannathan, Editorial Director of Swarajya Magazine. Abhishek Singh, CEO, National E-Governance Division, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, and Rohit Satish, Consultant, Frontier Technologies, Niti Aayog. Let me start with Rohit Satish on the program today, since we are talking about new age technologies, and since he's a consultant with Niti Aayog and he takes care of frontier technologies. Rohit, as far as frontier technologies are concerned, what is the state of frontier technologies in our country? Where do we stand? Where do we need to go?
Thank you. That's a very pertinent question, especially given the context that we are in right now. One thing that we've seen, especially with the pandemic, is that the role of technology has improved. Right? It's gained a lot more prominence in sectors where it previously was not gaining prominence. So in India in general, right, what we see with frontier technology specifically is there's generally a lag in terms of adoption, right? So specifically because of a lack of awareness and a lack of development of use cases, right? A development of mature use cases. And also there is this, there's a lack of talent for the entire ecosystem to grow. And there's an inhibition in terms of adoption as well, right? So I've been going through my life in one particular way. Why would I need to change it, right? So one good thing, since you're asking about state specifically now, what in some terms, pandemic has been, it has caused a lot of challenges around the world. But one thing that it's done is it's pushed technology into the mainstream in multiple areas where it previously was not.
Absolutely. And this is something that I would like to build on and take forward with you, Sangeeta Gupta. Those who have been able to adopt new technologies and adapt in time, the pandemic has indeed caused a lot of disruption. But the ones who've been able to, to adapt in the fastest possible time seem to be thriving, seem to be doing well. So there's a great big opportunity there.
Agree with that statement. One thing the pandemic has taught us is that technology is not just an enabler of business of our lives; it's become a foundation. So when you're talking about something that is so foundational, that is going to determine how we will live, how we will work, how we will interact. I think it's very important as a country we build the right solutions, we innovate for these technologies, we ensure their adoption across all spheres of life, and of course, build businesses that can thrive on the growth of these technologies. So clearly, I think there's never a better time to be a technology-enabled business. And every economy, every business will now want to be a technology business. So if I'm an auto company, I want to be a technology-first auto company. If I'm a healthcare company, I want to be a technology-first healthcare company. So frontier technologies, overall technologies, digital technologies, all are going to be very, very critical as we enter 2021 and look at what lies ahead. The companies that will succeed are the ones that have technology very firmly embedded in their businesses.
बिल्कुल तो जैसा संगीता गुप्ता भी कह रहे हैं कि टेक्नोलॉजी इज़ नॉट जस्ट एन एनेबलर इन आवर लाइव्स, इट्स लाइक आवर फाउंडेशन। अभिषेक सिंह जी, आपसे मैं समझना चाहूँगी कि जब हम टेक्नोलॉजी की बात कर रहे हैं और इस बार बजट की उम्मीदों की बात कर रहे हैं, इससे पहले कि क्या उम्मीद की जाए बजट में, किस तरह से इस क्षेत्र को एक नया रूप दिया जा सकता है, बजट उसमें कितनी बड़ी हेल्प कर सकता है, इससे पहले मैं जानना चाहूँगी टेक्नोलॉजी को लेकर हमने देखा है सरकार भी कई बातें कर चुकी है। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ये कई बार कह चुके हैं कि जो लोग हैं और जो सरकार है उनके बीच टेक्नोलॉजी एक ब्रिज का काम करती है। मैं जानना चाहूंगी कि किस तरह से टेक्नोलॉजी जो हमारी $5 ट्रिलियन की अर्थव्यवस्था का लक्ष्य है उसे पाने में बड़ी भूमिका निभा सकती है, और साथ ही हम कहें तो रिफॉर्म, ट्रांसफॉर्म और साथ ही ट्रांसपेरेंसी को लेकर गवर्नेंस के लेवल पर भी जो टेक्नोलॉजी है उसने कितनी बड़ी भूमिका निभाई है।
जैसा आपने बताया, टेक्नोलॉजी आज हमारे जीवन के हर पहलू को प्रभावित कर रही है। चाहे हम सरकारी सेवाएं लेते हों या बिजनेस सर्विसेज लेते हों, ई कॉमर्स के ट्रांजैक्शंस करते हों, ई लर्निंग करते हों, हेल्थ सर्विसेज एक्सेस करते हों, हर जगह टेक्नोलॉजी का एक अपना अहम रोल है। और पिछले कुछ वर्षों में, पिछले 5-6 वर्षों में इसका जो एक्सपेंशन हुआ है, चाहे वो जनधन अकाउंट्स के माध्यम से हुआ हो या फिर ई संजीवनी टेलीमेडिसिन के माध्यम से हुआ हो, यूपीआई भीम के तरह से हुआ हो, आधार से हुआ हो जिसने एक लोगों को पहचान दे दी है, डिजी लॉकर प्रोजेक्ट से हुआ हो जिसमें डॉक्यूमेंट्स लोगों को ईजिली एक्सेसिबल हो जाते हैं। तो टेक्नोलॉजी आज हमारे जीवन के हर पहलू को टच कर रही है। आने वाले वर्षों में जैसा एक लक्ष्य दिया है माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कि हम भारत के सभी 6 लाख गाँवों को ऑप्टिकल फाइबर से कनेक्ट कर देंगे और हाई स्पीड इंटरनेट प्रदान करेंगे। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा लक्ष्य है और इस वर्ष मुझे उम्मीद है कि इस दिशा में हमें काफ़ी प्रभावी कार्य करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ये एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण साल रहेगा। हमें कम से कम 1 लाख से ज़्यादा 2 लाख तक, क्योंकि 3 साल में 6 लाख गाँव करने हैं। अभी हम लगभग 1,50,000 गाँवों को जोड़ चुके हैं। तो आने वाले वर्षों में अगर हमको बाकी के 4.5 लाख जोड़ने हैं तो ऑप्टिकल फाइबर बेस्ड कनेक्टिविटी गाँव में पहुँचाना, और फिर गांव में पहुंचाना के साथ साथ वहां के प्राइमरी स्कूल को, मिडिल स्कूल को, वहां के प्राइमरी पाठशाला को और प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर को, पंचायत भवन को, आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर को, इसके माध्यम से कनेक्ट करके फिर सभी सेवाएं वहां प्रदान की जाएं। एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर को डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजीज़ काफ़ी दिशा में प्रभावित करेगा। अभी जो एग्रीकल्चर रिफॉर्म्स हुए हैं वो फार्मर्स को मार्केट को एक्सेस करने में मदद प्रदान करेगा। ई नैम जो एक प्रोजेक्ट लॉन्च हुआ था जिसे फार्मर्स मंडी को एक्सेस कर सकते हैं, अपने प्रोड्यूस को कहाँ बेचना है यह जान सकते हैं। और जो फ्रंटियर टेक्नोलॉजीज इस दिशा में आएंगी और जब इतने ज़्यादा डिजिटल ट्रांजैक्शंस होंगे, डेटा जो उसका जनरेट होगा, डेटा को एनालाइज करके एआई का प्रयोग करके उन हम सारे सर्विसेज को, सारे ऑपरेशंस को, सारे ट्रांजैक्शंस को और भी ज़्यादा एफिशिएंट बना पाएंगे। और जो एआई मशीन लर्निंग के टूल से, चाहे वो एग्रीकल्चर का क्षेत्र हो, हेल्थ का क्षेत्र हो, एजुकेशन का क्षेत्र हो, इसको हम रियली ट्रांसफॉर्म करने में सफल हो पाएंगे। तो ऑल दैट आई वुड वांट टू से इज दैट दिस बजट is we expect it to be heavy on technology. The role of technology has been emphasized in the past 1 year, whether it was the Arogya Setu app to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it was the CoWIN platform now which is helping the vaccination systems, whether it's the e-office systems, whether it's e-commerce systems, whether it's the Aadhaar system. So all of it will go to the next level and technology will really give a big fillip to the economy of the country.
Absolutely. You know, there is no doubt, R. Jagannathan, that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government is doing a stellar job as far as technology is concerned, technology-based schemes, you know, Aadhaar-linked direct benefit transfer, so many other schemes that we are doing excellently well, be it, you know, internet connectivity to the last mile. But as far as cutting-edge technology is concerned, we seem to be lagging behind. We don't seem to have the real edge as far as cutting edge technology is concerned. How do we ensure that we bridge that gap as well and bridge that divide too?
I think we are, it's not that we don't have cutting edge technology in all fronts. For example, if you look at the whole financial architecture, India has one of the most advanced financial architectures in the world. Consider the sheer billions of daily transactions through UPI, mobile banking. We are far, far advanced than even a country like America. So it's not like all fields we are behind. So the financial now we are thinking that not just the National Payments Corporation, but you're going to create an alternative one that will compete with it. Today, for example, you don't need to go to a branch. You don't need to have credit cards. You don't need to have ATMs. You can transact all your financial things, including raise a loan, through your mobile phone. So, and remember, smartphones are aggressively being pushed by private sector itself. Where we probably lag behind in terms of usage and cutting edge technologies, but if this is coming up very fast, is in areas like artificial intelligence, 3D printing, then also blockchain technology. I mean, it is not that we don't know that, but they're not being extensively used. But I think it will come aggressively in the next few months. Just a few weeks back, for example, one of our huge engineering companies built a 2-storied house using 3D printing in 106 hours. Can you imagine the kind of massive, affordable housing programs that can be done in a matter of months if you really use 3D technology? So my point is, like, it's gradually coming in. Our problem is not so much that we are not adopting these things, but we are using this technology more to serve the export markets and not so much the domestic markets, where I think the margins are so low that most of our technology companies prefer to serve the external markets. That is where our problem is. I think our technology companies need to focus, like, for example, in the case of Infosys or TCS, the domestic market share will be some 2, 3, 4%. The bulk of it is foreign. So which means our technology is benefiting foreign economies more than us. So we need to reorient it and incentivize the use of cutting edge technology at home, which we are doing in a limited way in government, Aadhaar and all that, but we need to do it in many, many more areas, and that needs to be incentivized both through the budget and outside it.
Absolutely. All right, taking the discussion forward now, let's get in reactions from all our panelists on what it is that they expect from the budget itself in a few days from now. So, Rohit Satish, as far as expectations are concerned, what would you expect for new age technologies from Nirmala Sitharaman's budget?
So, as has been mentioned, the role of technology is expected to be very high going forward. And at Niti Aayog, we set the direction for how technology should be used and where technology should be used in various fields. Like, for example, if we take specific examples, say artificial intelligence, right? So one thing that we see with artificial intelligence is, when it comes to government adopting anything, or what the role of government must be, right, in some of these technologies, right? Specifically with respect to artificial intelligence, we look at where a lot of investments have been going and where the investments have been lacking. And when we do something like that, we find that private sector investments with respect to artificial intelligence, for example, has largely been in sectors of high tech and finance, where there's a lot of incentive for private sector to get in, right? But when it comes to a role of government specifically, right, we see there's a lot of social sector use cases for artificial intelligence that could have a very high impact, right? Like education, like healthcare, like smart cities, agriculture, right, and transportation and mobility. So those are some of the areas where government can focus on. And also one of the things that government can focus on is setting up the right infrastructure, right base, right, for some of these technologies for the private sector to sort of take advantage of this technology and the resources that are available in India and take it forward. So basically, laying down the ecosystem is one aspect where we see expect a lot of investment to go in. And the second one is around prioritizing where these investments have to go to, which sectors the investments have to go to.
ठीक है. तो रोहित सतीश ने हमें बताया कि बजट में किस तरह की उम्मीदें हैं टेक्नोलॉजी को लेकर, इस क्षेत्र को और मजबूत बनाने को लेकर। संगीता गुप्ता, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगी, अगर नैस्कॉम की बात करें तो नैस्कॉम के मुताबिक 2025 तक जो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है वो देश की जीडीपी में करीब करीब $500 बिलियन तक का योगदान कर सकती है। तो इसके लिए आप लोग क्या चाहते हैं? बजट में किस तरह से टेक्नोलॉजी पर ध्यान दिया जाए और कौन सी ऐसी बातें हैं जो बजट में दिखाई देनी चाहिए?
अगर हम बजट का देखते हैं, हमारे 2-3 मेजर रिकमेंडेशंस हैं। एक तो है जो इंडस्ट्री है, विच इज लार्जली एन एक्सपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री, एज मिस्टर जगन्नाथन सेड. In 2020, with the pandemic and the lockdown, we've shown that work from home is a possibility. And going forward, even in the post-vaccine world, we believe that there will be a hybrid operating model. Some employees घर से काम करेंगे, कोई कहीं से भी काम कर सकता है. And that environment, अभी government has been very supportive. उन्होंने बहुत सारी policies change करी हैं to enable this new work model. And we believe कि अगर और support दिया जाए इस model को, we can have a lot more of employees working out of smaller cities and towns in India rather than only these big campuses जो हमने अभी बड़ी-बड़ी cities में करा था. तो हमारी एक बड़ी recommendation ये है कि work from home की जो policies हैं उनको और smoothen करें, whether it is about SEZ, STPI laws जहाँ पे अभी temporary exemptions दिए गए हैं उनको more long term करें. Secondly, अगर आप देखें smaller towns and villages में, वहाँ पे हम किस तरह का शेयर्ड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बना सकते हैं ताकि एम्प्लॉयज़ कुछ टाइम घर से काम करें, कुछ टाइम कहीं को वर्किंग स्पेस या कोई STPI सेंटर्स जैसे अक्रॉस द कंट्री होते थे उस टाइप के और सेंटर्स बने ताकि मोर एम्प्लॉयज़, मोर women can join our workforce. So that is one big recommendation that we have, because we believe that as an industry we can go deeper into India than what we have done till now. The second recommendation is around startups. I think Mr. Jagannathan rightly said that badi companies are largely working for a lot of global companies, but we have a lot of very innovative startups that are building solutions in all these frontier technologies, and they want to work with Indian companies, with Indian government. So uske liye, if the procurement norms, I think Abhishek ji is already working on a lot of them. How can we simplify procurement norms where the government can work more effectively with these startups that are building innovative technologies? I think that can be a huge boost where Indian technology can be used for Indian solutions, whether it's Indian enterprise or Indian government. I think the third part, which may not be necessarily budget centric, but is a very strong recommendation linked to our AI value capture opportunity of 450-500 billion by 2025, is the focus on data. अगर हमें artificial intelligence के right solutions बनाने हैं, we need the right data in this country. So today, there is a lot of data available in lot of different places, but it's not structured, it is not very usable. For example, अगर हमको Indian languages में काम करना है, उसका data कैसे एक जगह पे मिल सकता है with the right structure and the right standards. So as a part of government's AI mission, which is expected to get funding in the budget, there should be a strong focus on building the entire data infrastructure, which will be the backbone or foundation for AI in the country.
Absolutely. So we've heard the key recommendations really as far as the industry body is concerned. Abhishek Singh, as far as new technologies in the budget, what do you think will be the key focus areas?
The potential of India in trying to be becoming a world leader in technology is well known. How do we realize this potential? That's the biggest challenge. And if we look at India, if we look at the AI and frontier technologies, many of our startups, we have one of the countries with the largest number of startups in this space. Where we lack is the amount of research that we do, the amount of supercomputing infrastructure that we have. So I would expect some investment in this direction, because this will yield dividends in the long run. If we set up, CDAC is building up a Param supercomputing infrastructure. We have a national mission on quantum computing. If we make investments in the field of supercomputers, in the field of quantum computing, make it available to our academicians, set up research centers in the IITs, in the Indian Institute of Sciences and other research institutions, then the students, the PhD scholars, they will be able to come up with products which can help India take the leadership in this space. The other field that I would expect something to happen is setting up the data governance framework, as Sangeeta ji was also mentioning, because that's one area wherein we can use it to build solutions at a population scale that can be applied across the world. So for example, if we develop a solution for breast cancer scanning using AI and using the data sets that we have available in our hospitals, that solution can be applied world over. Diabetic retinopathy has already been proved in agriculture to predict like crop yields or to diagnose agri diseases. If these solutions can be scaled up, then it will not only transform the various sectors that they are applicable to in India, but they will have a lot of application worldwide. And a related subject, though not directly related to this, it will be use of emerging technologies, AI into manufacturing. So that would be another area, because India is putting up a lot of emphasis on boosting our manufacturing ecosystem. In the electronics manufacturing, the PLI scheme has been a roaring success. We have got investments from almost all the top manufacturers of mobile phones, and this scheme is now being extended to laptops, to notebooks, to wearables, to other electronic devices, and other ministries also. I think 10 other sectors have been identified for PLI-led manufacturing. So in the budget that will come, I'm sure there will be a lot of emphasis on boosting manufacturing in India, boosting India's manufacturing index, India's innovation index. So together with investment in computing, with investment in research, with a data governance framework, with the PDP bill almost being finalized and the non-personal data sharing framework being finalized, and with the boost in electronics manufacturing, all this will combine to give India a position that would help us in the long run in not only reaching the $1 trillion digital economy goal, but also creating millions of jobs for Indian graduates of various engineering colleges, various other vocational colleges. And I would also like to mention that along with that, we also launched the Future Prime Skills program. In last November, it has gone into the full launch, and the number of courses that are available on that platform, or if we look at the number of students who are accessing those courses online, shows the appetite Indian students have for technology related courses. And if this is totally properly leveraged, then we will have one of the world's largest skilled workforce, which understands what emerging technologies is and which will be ready to take up the jobs that will be available in this sector. So ideally, we are very well poised at this point of time, and in the coming year, we'll expect a lot of action on all these fronts in 2021.
Absolutely. R. Jagannathan, since we are here, let me take one other aspect forward with you. We're talking about emerging technologies. A big part of emerging technologies is R&D. We've seen the public sector doing well as far as R&D is concerned, be it ISRO, be it DRDO. But, the private sector doesn't seem to be investing too much as far as R&D and research is concerned. Do you believe that needs to pick up going forward?
Absolutely. I think the budget should incentivize far more R&D than it has done in the past. There are some minor incentives, but that's simply not enough. I think we are probably doing a little more in the area of some things where we already are world leaders, like say in pharmaceuticals and all. We have not yet developed new molecules that are world beating, but we have come into the intermediate sectors in areas like, abbreviated new drug things and biosimilars and various other kinds of things. We need to now increase this. We have to move from being a provider of IT services to entire platforms and products. So, and that is where the transition we need to make even in our strength areas of IT services, where we need to be able to invest a lot more in products and services which need a lot of research and development, even in the IT space. And of course, not to speak of things. Also, very often R&D does not necessarily mean invention of new things. Take a simple world-beating company like Apple. It did not invent any of the technologies it uses. It merely made all the available technologies, whether it was the touch screen or this thing, built beautiful, humanly usable products, and they are more than a true $1 trillion company. So often the technologies exist, but the ability to synthesize them into useful products is something that we can attempt. We don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel on every subject. We can actually combine them in some way. The real power of technology comes not from individual inventions, but from combining already existing technology. I think Peter Drucker says, don't try to invent the future. Serve the future that is already here and visible. Then you will do enough technological change that will be generating huge wealth.
Absolutely.
रोहित सतीश, अभी जगन्नाथन सर ने काफ़ी अहम बातें कही हैं, लेकिन जाहिर सी बात है जब हम टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करेंगे तो इनोवेशन को भी हम नकार नहीं सकते। और हाल ही में देखो तो नीति आयोग ने इनोवेशन इंडेक्स जारी किया, जिसके बारे में हम देखें तो दिल्ली, कर्नाटक, महाराष्ट्र जैसे जो राज्य हैं और तमिलनाडु भी है इसमें, ये अच्छा कर रहे हैं। लेकिन काफ़ी ऐसे राज्य हैं जो अच्छा नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन पोटेंशियल है वहाँ पर। इसे लेकर आपको क्या लगता है कि अलग अलग जगह के पोटेंशियल को पहचानना इस क्षेत्र में भी कितना ज़रूरी है और उसके लिए क्या किया जा सकता है?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you're looking at taking, or taking, as you said, the states are at different level, and how do we take them from one state to the one position to the other, right? So that's a very pertinent point, and not just in terms of skills, right? But also in terms of know-how and in terms of adoption, awareness, and so on and so on. In this regard, some of the strategies that that we are trying is we work with respect to say artificial intelligence. We work on a few projects, a few pilot projects with a few states, and then we sort of get the findings and we do. I mean, this we run as more of a research kind of a mode in which we get all of these findings, and then we sort of prepare templates that can be used not just by one state, but then across different states. And also in terms of improving the capacity, on various levels, what one of the recommendations that we have as well is that government should become a major adopter of technology, especially of frontier technologies, and there must be policies in place that will enable some of these things to happen. Right? One of the things that was also mentioned by the other speaker was around procurement, right? Around procurement of technology. So can we make this much easier, right? Especially with this pandemic, one of the technologies that has come out now is augmented and virtual realities, right? Which has taken off, right? And if a startup has come up with an innovation and wants to scale across India, right? So how do we do that? Can we leverage some of the existing mechanisms that we have? Or can we look at the procurement mechanisms that we have? Procurement mechanisms currently it does not cater to some of these emerging technologies that needs to keep, that has patents and that needs to keep getting evolved over time, right? And some of these some of these needs to be addressed by the government. And from a policy perspective, it is something that we are looking at, right? On various domains. And some of the work that we've already done around this. One of the work that we've already done around this is around responsible management of artificial intelligence itself, right? So now if artificial intelligence has to be adopted somewhere, it also comes with its own risks. Right? There are certain ways, certain things that you'll need to take care of. Right? One of them, some of it that we already know is around the privacy concerns, the security concerns, but also you have issues of bias, issues of explainability, the black box issues. And then now with all of these, so-called sophisticated issues coming in, and if you want to take this system and deploy it in a state that is relevantly nascent in terms of technology adoption, what sort of tools can you give them? What sort of frameworks can you give them that they can adopt technologies and they can use it in a reliable manner? So one of the things that we don't want is, we have technology that gets adopted somewhere and then it does not work out and people lose confidence in it. We don't want that, right? So in terms of, boosting some of this, we've created a framework for responsible AI management, and we hope, having such frameworks would help states and even, bodies that are not used to adopting technologies. They can take a framework and they can use that framework to adopt technologies in their own segment.
Absolutely. Since we are here then, Sangeeta Gupta, what is the kind of support, the kind of hand-holding some of our IT companies need, so that they can up their level, so that so that we can take the services, take the products that they are providing to the next level? How much of hand-holding would they require from the government?
I think the large companies are already building out products and platforms because they clearly recognize that the future for technology is not going to be just vanilla IT services. It has to be built on top of products and platforms, productized solutions, and delivered in an as-a-service model. I think if you look at saying what is needed to support or accelerate this growth, there are two things. Right? One is clearly that R&D in the Indian context is a little more related to manufacturing. It's about the shop floor having a physical R&D center. Versus, I think the R&D in the current world is a lot more software. So how can we support R&D and innovation in the technology industry, which is not necessarily only related to manufacturing, but provides the basis for software and services R&D that will take place? And I think there are some recommendations NASSCOM has already made around that. The second is products require a lot of brand building and marketing budgets. I think there can be a great partnership with the government to take products from India to the world and of course adoption in India. So, how can we collaboratively partner to make products from India not only just like Indian IT services companies are well known, globally known, we want Indian products to be equally well known. MITI runs the National Software Product Mission, and there are some very good suggestions under that need to be taken forward. I think the third and most important is really that, particularly if you look at a startup sector, startups and other companies that are building in deep technology areas require funding that is called patient capital. You are not going to get return from a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year perspective. This requires investment from a 7-10-year perspective. And hence, the need for more government funding or domestic capital funding, which understands the imperative to support these companies till the time the product has matured for reaching the consumers and their market. I think that would be a very, very important support that can be provided if we truly want to build India's deep tech frontier technology ecosystem.
बिल्कुल। अभिषेक सिंह जी, जो चर्चा अभी तक आप सुन रहे हैं उसमें मैं चाहूँगी कि जो बड़ी बातें हैं उन पर आप जवाब दें। किस तरह से सरकार मदद कर सकती है और ख़ास तौर से बजट के ज़रिए मदद कर सकती है। जिस तरह रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट की बात हो रही है और इसका दायरा कितना बढ़ाया जा सकता है, और ख़ासकर जब हम टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र की बात करते हैं तो क्या हमारे पास उतना स्पेशलाइजेशन है जितना हमें चाहिए, स्पेशलाइज्ड लोग हैं जितने हमें चाहिए, या फिर उनके लिए जो नौकरी होनी चाहिए, रोज़गार होना चाहिए, क्या उतने स्किल्ड लोग हम ला पा रहे हैं? और साथ ही जो पोटेंशियल बाकी राज्यों में है, क्योंकि हम देखते हैं इसमें ज़्यादातर जो दक्षिणी राज्य हैं वो अच्छा करते हैं, बाकी जगह जो पोटेंशियल है उसको भी पहचानने में सरकार बजट के ज़रिए कैसे मदद कर सकती है?
ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न आपने कहा है कि रिसर्च को बढ़ाना है, और अगर हमको रिसर्च को प्रमोट करना है और हमें ये इंश्योर करना है कि हमारे पास पर्याप्त संख्या में स्किल्ड और ट्रेंड पर्सनल मैन पावर उपलब्ध हो, तो इसके लिए रिसर्च में निवेश करना बहुत ही आवश्यक है। वर्तमान में बहुत सारी स्कीम्स हैं जो गवर्नमेंट चला रही है। मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स एंड आईटी में विश्वेश्वरैया स्कीम है जिसके अंतर्गत हम करीब 1000 पीएचडी स्कॉलर्स को सपोर्ट करते हैं फेलोशिप्स के माध्यम से। डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ साइंस टेक्नोलॉजी के पास वेरियस स्कीम्स हैं जिसके तहत सपोर्ट किया जाता है। बायरैक है, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी है, हायर एजुकेशन है, तो हर जगह तमाम स्कीम्स हैं जिसमें हम रिसर्च को प्रमोट करते हैं। बट और साथ साथ सेंटर फॉर एक्सेलेंस इन इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, ब्लॉकचेन कई बनाए गए हैं जिससे हम इसको सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं। बट जो हमारे देश की रिक्वायरमेंट है और जो देश का पोटेंशियल है उसको रियलाइज़ करना है, तो इसको अभी कई गुना बढ़ाने की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी। हमारे यहाँ तमाम ऐसे क्वालिफाइड लोग हैं, अगर उनको हम एक्सेस दें सुपर कंप्यूटिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का, क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का, जिस पे वो अपने एल्गोरिदम्स को रन कर सके, अपने एक्सपेरिमेंट्स को चला सकें, अपने प्रयोग कर पाएँ, तो वो कुछ ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट्स बनाने में सफल होंगे जो कि रियली एकेडमिया और रिसर्च को प्रोडक्ट के स्टेज में ले जाने में कामयाब हो पाएगा। क्योंकि कई बार होता क्या है कि रिसर्च जब लिमिट हो जाता है तो अगर हमारे पास टैलेंट भी है, सोच भी है, बट उसको हम प्रयोग करके प्रोडक्टाइजेशन पे नहीं ले जा सकते हैं। तो एक रिसर्च में इन्वेस्टमेंट और दूसरा रिसर्च, एकेडमिया और इंडस्ट्री के बीच पार्टनरशिप और कोलैबोरेशन को इंश्योर करना, इसके लिए मैकेनिज्म्स बनाने की बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यकता है। थर्ड और जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा है, स्टार्टअप्स को इन्वेस्टमेंट का बेनिफिट देने का, कि कैसे हम स्टार्टअप्स को इन्वेस्टमेंट में रूप में अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ दें। आज हमारे देश में जितने बड़े स्टार्टअप्स हैं वो काफ़ी समय से बाहर के पैसे पे डिपेंडेंट रहे हैं। बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स में अमेरिका का पैसा लगा है, वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड का पैसा लगा है, कुछ में चाइना का पैसा लगा है, और पिछले 1 साल से चाइनीज़ इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो हमारे स्टार्टअप्स अवॉइड कर रहे हैं बिकॉज ऑफ ऑब्वियस रीजंस। तो ऐसे में हमें आवश्यकता है कि हम एक इन्वेस्टमेंट का माहौल बनाएं कि जो हाई नेटवर्थ इंडियंस हैं और जो ऐसे लोग हैं जिनके पास इन्वेस्टमेंट करने की कैपेसिटी है वो कैसे इन स्टार्टअप में इन्वेस्ट कर पाएँ, स्टार्टअप्स के इकोसिस्टम को समझ पाएँ, इसमें पैसे लगा पाएँ। और साथ ही इसको प्रमोट करने के लिए मतलब मैं तो यही चाहूँगा, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ आईटी में हूँ, कि हम एक सरकार की तरफ से भी एक इनोवेशन फंड या स्टार्टअप डेवलपमेंट फंड करके बनाएं जो कि सीड फंडिंग दे पाए चोजन स्टार्टअप्स में एक ट्रांसपेरेंट प्रोसेस के तहत, जिससे कि सरकार का भी मतलब स्टार्टअप्स का भी गवर्नमेंट के प्रति कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ पाए। अभी तक हमने पिछले 1 वर्षों में बहुत सारे इनोवेशन चैलेंजेस किए। जब लास्ट ईयर जो बहुत सारे ऐप्स बैन किए गए थे बिकॉज जो नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को प्रभावित कर रहे थे, डेटा प्राइवेसी को वायलेट कर रहे थे, तो हमने एक ऐप इनोवेशन चैलेंज किया था। उसमें करीब 24 ऐप्स को रिवॉर्ड किया गया, करीब 21 प्रॉमिसिंग ऐप्स निकल के आए। उन सब में इतना पोटेंशियल है कि वर्ल्ड बीटर्स हो सकते हैं। बट आज टेक्नोलॉजी का स्पेस इतना कम्पिटिटिव है और इतनी बड़ी कंपनीज इसमें मौजूद हैं, तो हमारे अगर स्टार्टअप के प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर्स को गूगल और फेसबुक और बड़ी टेक कंपनीज का मुकाबला करना है तो उनको इन्वेस्टमेंट की बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यकता पड़ेगी, मार्केटिंग की बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यकता पड़ेगी और यूज़र बेस की आवश्यकता पड़ेगी। तो हमें उनमें इन्वेस्ट भी करना है, उन पर ट्रस्ट भी करना है, स्टार्टअप्स को उपयोग करना है ताकि वो इंडियन मार्केट को तो देख ही पाएँ, पूरे ग्लोबल मार्केट को कैप्चर कर पाएँ। तो ये एक स्टार्टअप्स की अपॉर्चुनिटी जो है हमारे देश की, पूरी दुनिया मानता है कि भारत का स्टार्टअप्स को इकोसिस्टम बहुत स्ट्रांग है, बट इसको अगले लेवल तक ले जाने के लिए वी नीड टू हैव सम sound investment opportunities created from in-house investors, from the private sector, from people who have money, as also government trying to keep up a mechanism of creating an innovation fund, a seed fund, a startup fund, which can invest in selected startups and help them achieve their entire potential.
Absolutely. Taking the discussion forward now, R. Jagannathan, let's also talk about, what are some of the sectors or verticals to watch out for as far as new technology is concerned? Let's not forget, the government's major push is clearly still going to be on healthcare and improving healthcare infrastructure as the whole.
I mean, one area which is clearly taking off like a rocket is the whole financial space. I think which started with little before demonetization and even before that with UPI and all the financial architecture evolved by the NCPI. But that's, of course, found its own trajectory. It's going to take off vertically. But there are several areas which are job creating sectors where government push can be useful. For example, one of these fast growing job sectors, which is like app-based taxi hailing services and delivery systems and for app-based ordering and other things, those got impacted by COVID because people got afraid of sitting in shared taxis or whatever it is because they thought they might get the infection. But once the COVID scare is gone with vaccination, I think the government should actually create public-private partnerships in creating its own apps so that the drivers actually benefit. One of the problems with, say, the current shared mobility apps is that a very high percentage of the driver's earnings goes to the technology company and not to the person driving the car or the auto. So, but if you do it through public-private partnerships, where the driver gets say 90% of his earnings, then you will find that these guys will be forced to compete and think. Right now the cost to the driver is too high and they still remain barely able to earn very little. So and similarly, I think a lot of this you can really create millions of jobs even in this area. A lot of private cars are not used enough. If private cars are converted to shared mobility, where I may own a car, but I may offer the same car for use as a shared Ola, Uber or any other thing. I think many of these things need regulatory changes rather than just money. And regulation is the critical thing that will drive innovation, expansion in jobs and adoption of technology. And that is where I think we need to emphasize. India's problem is not that you don't have new ideas or great entrepreneurs. But all these guys come up against regulatory roadblocks. Even the startups, we have brilliant guys doing the startups. But suddenly he will say, okay, you go to some fellow and get a power permit, or you go somewhere and you'll have to get some Shops and Establishment Act permit. So if he has to go 23 different permissions, then he'll spend most of his time trying to manage the ecosystem rather than focusing on what he needs to do, which is to innovate. So many of these areas, I think the government needs, and here I think the states are very important. The problem is not so much at the central level, where there is a huge appreciation of the need to ease of doing business, improving it. But at the state level, there are lots of roadblocks, and there are too many permissions that need only at the state level. And those things need to change. And I think we tend to emphasize too much on cash and other things. I personally think there is no shortage of cash and capital for investment in great ideas. Most problems occur when the rubber hits the road, where a startup actually comes and finds that has to do 20 other things rather than focus on his innovation. That is where your problem is.
Absolutely. All right. Rohit Satish, as far as new technologies are concerned, what are some of the problem areas? How can the budget address those problem areas? What can we expect?
Right. So, the two things about the emerging technology that sort of we've been contemplating as well is along two domains, right? So it was one of the things that was mentioned here was around regulations, right? How to think about regulations, right? So regulations historically regulations has not kept pace with technology, right? So how do you think about regulations, especially when you're talking about emerging technologies, right? Because what is possible today is what is not possible today is possible tomorrow. What is not accessible today would become accessible tomorrow, right? So how do you think about these regulations, and can we go about this in the traditional form that we have been going, right? So we have been thinking about this, and we think having as was mentioned as previous by other speakers as well, having a multidisciplinary participation in some of these decisions, right, is something that would be useful. One of the things that we've recommended is for such a multidisciplinary sort of a participation structure towards responsible management of artificial intelligence. Another thing that we sort of see here is when with these frontier technologies, till now, historically, if you see, India has got onto the bandwagon a little later into the game, right? So you have all of these other countries coming in, and then India sort of comes in a little later, right? So and that is why most of the job creation that happens in India as well is towards the service end of most of these technologies, right? Can we jump onto the bandwagon at an early stage? Can we identify these technologies, these emerging technologies that we call the frontier, the sunrise technologies or the frontier technologies that you're saying? Can we identify some of these and see what role India can play and how India can get onto the bandwagon a little earlier, right, than the others? And one of the technologies that we've been thinking about in this regard has been the augmented and virtual reality, right? It's not just about building apps and all that. Can we get into the hardware space as well, right, where a lot of value creation is happening? Right, and with the Make in India initiative, we've seen that the Make in India initiative has boosted the manufacturing of mobile phones in India. Augmented and virtual realities reuse a lot of components that are required for smartphone manufacturing, and can we reuse some of those and sort of make this as one sort of an example for us to get onto the bandwagon a little earlier? Considering that with the pandemic, remote working has increased and remote learning has increased, and there's a lot of space for such a technology, right? So can we look at these two things, right? So one is how to think about regulations. And regulations, currently if you speak to a startup or a private sector about regulation, it's more about, okay, I don't want to, it's more about, this is inhibiting, right? But can we make these regulations enabling, right? Can we make this enablers of innovation, right? So that is one kind of thinking that we are hoping that this this budget would inspire. And another is, can we look at jumping onto the bandwagon of some of these emerging technologies a little earlier into the game, so that India can extract a lot more value from some of these technologies.
बिल्कुल। संगीता गुप्ता, इसमें आप कुछ जोड़ना चाहेंगी अगर आपके एक्सपेक्टेशंस की बात करें, चाहे वो पॉलिसी लेवल पर कुछ चेंजेस की बात हो या फिर हम रेगुलेशन के लेवल पर बात करें या फिर अपनी क्षमता को समय से पहले पहचानने की बात करें, तो क्या उम्मीदें आपकी हैं?
Points have been discussed, the importance of having the right regulatory policy environment, multidisciplinary interactions, India should plan ahead rather than follow the curve, everything. I think the only other angle I would say is that for a country like India, if we can identify what is the problem we are trying to solve and how these frontier technologies can solve it. If our use case is doubling farmers' income, then how can emerging technologies play a key role to help us solve that challenge? और उसके अंदर हमें क्या data चाहिए, क्या policy चाहिए, कैसे innovation करेंगे, कैसे adoption करेंगे, या हमारी use case है कि हमें healthcare for all Indians चाहिए, उसके अंदर हम कैसे काम करेंगे. So I think if we can also look at emerging technologies not in isolation कि हमें ये technology adopt करनी है because ये right thing to do है, but what is the problem that this will solve? I think then we can get better interaction across all the stakeholders that is truly needed for the value creation to happen in India.
Since we are here, then Abhishek Singh, let's build on this and talk a little bit about this as well. Since we're talking about looking ahead and being future ready, ideation is one aspect, but implementation is a completely different thing, isn't it?
If implementation is not as good as ideation, then the best of the ideas will remain only on paper. So the biggest challenge remains on how do you translate your ideas into the real world, and how do you ensure that whatsoever research is done, whatsoever brilliant technology has, how much of it is actually helping the person at the last mile. If a AI technology is there, or if a AR, VR or IoT device is there, can it transform healthcare? Can it transform agriculture? Can it transform learning? Can it help in building skills? So that is where the real challenge is. So like for example, in AI, very often the one very common technology that is talked about is the image processing. Like how do you use an image to predict some other model? So various uses have been done in India also. We have been tried for breast cancer scanning, for jaundice scanning also. I was seeing a solution which was used for that. So if these solutions can go from being a pilot or from being a proof of concept to being adopted across the country by using the data sets that are available across in various states, so that would require the biggest challenge in implementation. The other big use in India that we can have of these emerging technologies is to transcend the language barrier. Because what happens, we are a huge country, multiple languages, multiple dialects. You travel from one part of the other, one part of the country to the other, and you are not able to communicate well. So if voice-enabled natural language processing technologies are used, and we are able to provide digital content in a voice form or in an electronic format to more and more people, it will enhance learning. It can help meet the shortage of teachers that we may have in remote villages and all. So that would be the real application of technology for using there. Agriculture, precision agriculture has been talked about a lot. There have been startups who are working in this field. There have been experiments which ICAR has done and several states have done. But can we ensure that it becomes ubiquitous? Can we ensure that more and more states adopt it? Flood forecasting, there were various models which are used in which AI was used to forecast floods and to give warnings to people with regard to those who are living in flood prone areas maybe 48 hours in advance. So by using various channels for communication, the flood forecasting becomes like a normal routine things in areas of Assam or upper Bihar area, in the states like Bihar, wherein lots of damage to life and livelihoods happen because of these natural calamities. That would be the real test of technology. And all of it will happen only by proper implementation. Take up the technology, draw up the plans on the drawing board, get the right stakeholders from the industry, from the academia, from the government, work out a plan and execute what you can. And then only we'll be able to move on from building castles in the air to actually doing something on the ground. So that is where the value lies in, on having right implementation plans which match up to the ideation plans, to match up to the best of the technology that we can have.
Absolutely. R. Jagannathan, we've come to the end of our program now. Close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah, I would like to take up from where Sangeeta said that you have to work backwards from what is the problem you are trying to solve. Once you define your problem, say, this is what I want to solve, then it becomes obvious what technology you need to can harness, which is already there, or what technology, Take two simple political problems that we have. We have all kinds of tensions over language, right? Now, why should we depend on a Google to help us translate from A to B. Now, why should we have tensions between Hindi and Tamil or Malayalam or Bengali? My point is, in the next 5 years, if we had a targeted program where translations are from one Indian language to the other, can be done through a device that actually hears in one language and is able to give out an output in another language, we will sort half our political tensions. Second thing is, say, digital voting. You can do many things. So while I see that technology can be used in we have a problem of stunting among children. We still have an uneradicated problem in TB. Now, all these things are things that technology can solve. We don't have a database of all the technology guys where you are able to monitor and consider. In COVID, we managed to do that. We have the Arogya Setu and very other databases, testing, tracing, all those things. But for our traditional diseases, we haven't done as well. Like we have had all kinds of, those things can easily be handled by technology. So if you work backwards from what you are trying to solve, you can monitor all these things with database technology, other things. You don't even need to invent new technology. You merely need to merge all existing. I think that is where we are not doing as well. We need to, of course, be in the frontier areas, but the wheels that have already been invented are not being put to adequate use in the things that we can solve right today. So I think the budget must promote that. And say telemedicine, teleconsulting, so many things. We have very few doctors. Same thing somebody talked about. You have very few good teachers. So you should use the same guy to teach thousands of people rather than one classroom. So
Right.
it is logical to have all these things. So we need to solve many of our current problems through existing technologies as well as focus on frontier ones.
बिल्कुल, तो बहुत अहम पहलू हैं जो आज की चर्चा से हमारे सामने आए हैं और देखना होगा कि बजट में टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र को लेकर किस तरह की नई दिशा हमें वित्त मंत्री के जरिए मिलती है। संगीता गुप्ता जी, आर जगन्नाथन सर, अभिषेक सिंह जी, साथ ही रोहित सतीश, आप चारों मेहमानों का मैं बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कहना चाहूँगी हमारे इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल होने के लिए। तो एवरी पॉसिबल चेंज इज़ नाउ पॉसिबल विद टेक्नोलॉजी। फ्रैंक, तो देखना होगा कि किस तरह से टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र में अब बजट नई उम्मीदों के साथ सामने आता है। और इसी के साथ इस खास पेशकश में फ़िलहाल इतना ही। और हम अगले जो बजट ऑफ होप हमारा कार्यक्रम होगा, इसमें हम सर्विस सेक्टर की बात करेंगे और ख़ास तौर से जोर होगा कि कैसे बजट के ज़रिए सर्विस सेक्टर को रिवाइव किया जा सकता है। नमस्कार।